Yo, what's going on? This is the ShoPowSho. We are back again doing it for the people, for the culture. I am Kuya P, and I am blessed to be with the amazing Ates once again. Shout out to Cataphoric and Viva Valentina. How are you doing, ladies?
Doing all right. Hype for show number 2.
Yes. Actually, this will be episode 3.
Oh, 3.
We have a surprise show. We're going to drop, actually, by the time you even see this, you will see a get to know thing video that we did where we wanted you to kind of learn a little bit more about us, because we're going to be taking you on this journey as we meet all these different folks within Filipino history and culture, and the movers and shakers. And you got to know who you're riding with, right? So you get to know a little bit about us. So I hope you enjoy that. So for this episode, we rushed to deliver it because right now we are in the midst of election 2020, where you will have to make the decision of who you want to vote for and how do you want the world to be after this year. If you've already seen the previous episodes, and if you've been following me on Nerds of Color and all, what we do with Nerds of Color, we're very liberal cats and we're very anti-Trump, me especially. Can't stand the guy. I won't speak for Cataphoric and Viva, but I think I know how they feel as well. The Orange Menace has affected us all. And we need to vote his ass out. But we have an amazing guest that we'll talk with very soon. But I'm gonna throw it to Kat and Tina. Anything you guys want to talk about, and we'll talk about this again with Rodney, our special guest, and then afterwards, why is it just so important to do the election right now?
Just growing up, I always had kind of, my family has always, or at least my immediate family that raised me, has always been fairly liberal, and so it was just something that I didn't have the uncomfortable Thanksgivings that a lot of people have, just because more or less, we were all kind of on the same page. And so it just was always kind of understood that voting was important, even in local elections, that you should try to be as informed as possible, even if that just means a quick wiki search on the way to the polls. So I was lucky in that respect, I think. And when I hear about other people's kind of political experiences in their family, I think that's an even, I'm even more grateful that things were the way they were for me, and that I will try to encourage other people to try to pass on that sense of civic responsibility and just kind of accepting what is the right thing to do.
So I was raised very conservative. Both of my parents were super conservative, Catholic conservative. So my experience growing up was they were always about, voting and doing their civic duty. And they always wanted me to vote. But as I got older and, made my own decisions and went off to college and got all liberal, sorry, Dad, I kind of had to find my own way in it. And obviously I went very liberal with it. And kind of that going on that journey where you're rejecting the past and kind of rejecting these things that were just kind of told to you, and then forming your own opinions is really important right now. And just using that critical thinking and making your decisions, and making decisions that will affect you, the people that you love, and people that the minorities that don't have a choice. So get out there and vote. Let's make the world a better place. I used to be very cynical too about do votes matter? And it absolutely does. This is the backbone of our government. Get out there, make a choice, do the right thing.
Hey everyone, Kuya P here. As you just saw, myself, Viva Valentina, and Cataphoric was breaking down the episode. However, we had some technical difficulties. 2020 giving you a lot of issues, and that's what we're experiencing now. So it wouldn't be 2020 without the ShoPowSho experiencing issues. So we really wanted to get this video out here. We have a great interview with Mr. Rodney Salinas, based in Washington, D.C. He currently serves as the National Sales Director for Hungary at www.tryhungary.com. com. He is a former political staffer and activist. Rodney has been a leader in the Filipino American community since 1993 when he came to DC to attend the George Washington University. Nowadays, he uses his role as a business leader in the hospitality industry to promote Filipino American culture across all communities. He's a great guy. Here he is. Check out our interview with Mr. Rodney Salinas. All right, here we go. Our special guest. Please welcome Rodney Salinas and the amazing Ates, Kat, and Tina. How are you doing, Rodney?
Doing great, brother.
Awesome. It's a pleasure to have you on. And again, thank you for what you do as a Filipino, as an Asian American, with the work, your life's work, actually, you know, really, it's very commendable. And I want to dig into that. What makes somebody want to make this a career and speak to our people to help make this a better world? Because I think you guys are the true heroes, because we need that going on. And so let's hit it up. Where are you originally from? Let's start easy. Actually, you know what? I want to, let's make this an icebreaker. I was thinking about this earlier. It kind of helps, you know, kind of gets the jitters of the initial interview off because, you know, we really dig in. So because this is the Nerds of Color, I want to do a nerd check. Marvel or DC Comics fan?
Oh my gosh. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a huge comic book person in the least. Not just being totally honest there. So
that's fine. Then are you into sci-fi?
No, I am not.
No. So then, okay, then what are your nerd-isms? And then the three of us will throw something nerdy to question you about that nerd-ism to see how hardcore of a nerd you are.
I'm a political nerd. Does that count?
Yes, of course that counts.
For sure. Okay. Listen to the news as much as possible. If you point out a couple politicians, I probably know exactly who they are, where they come from, what their politics stand for. So if that makes me a nerd, then so be it.
It does. It sure does.
We should make them give us all the 50 presidents or 45 presidents. Oops, on the number there.
You said this is a conversation, not a quiz, bro.
What's your favorite president? How's that?
There we go.
Without a doubt, it'll still always be President Bill Clinton. I had the opportunity to work closely with his administration and then actually have the chance to meet him back in 1999 when I helped coordinate a fundraising dinner for about 800 people. He happened to be our keynote speaker, so I was pleased to coordinate with his team and meet with him backstage at the Capitol Hilton, and it is definitely one of my most prized photos. He autographed it. It's hanging in my office to this day.
Awesome. See, that's a great nerd fact.
There we go. Yes,
exactly. Thanks, Kat.
So how did you get into politics as your area of expertise?
You know, it's just one of those things where it started when I was a little kid, I guess, just gravitating towards speech and debate, international studies, just being aware of what's around me. I did go to a specialized high school program that focused on international studies. And so that led me to the Washington, D.C. area. I went to George Washington University, which is only about 3 blocks away from the White House. And as you can imagine, when you're surrounded by that much energy, that much focus, that many highly political minds all around you, you can't help but start being just constantly aware of what is happening and how you can most importantly participate in the process. And so, so many times we would get last minute calls to be like, hey, Rod, you know, we've got this protest going on. We've got this rally. We have people that are coming in from out of town that need hosts, you know, to host them as they come in to protest or to advocate on behalf of a particular issue. So it's always been, you know, on top of my mind, to say the least. And so from there, I went to a graduate school program that was focused on campaigns and elections, focusing on fundraising in particular. And before I was even done with the program, got picked up to work on a congressional campaign out in West Virginia, of all places, to be their national fundraising director. So, you know, it just steamrolled from there, working with a bunch of different non-profit organizations, advocating on behalf of the Asian American and more specifically, the Filipino American community. And that's obviously what I'm most passionate about. It is my background, it is in my blood, and it is something that is near and dear to my heart.
Nice.
love it.
That's
Yes.
awesome. Yeah. Wow, that was really good.
Yeah.
So let's start. Where are you from? Kat was, I mean, not Kat, but Tina, the last interview, she was like, as soon as we started, like, where are you from? Like, we want to dig in the roots. So where are your
Sure.
parents from? Let's go take it back to PI. Were you born in the States, or, let's start from the seed.
Sure. I am probably one of the most stereotypically Filipino guys out there. Born in the Philippines. My father served for 20 years in the United States Navy, and my mother's a registered nurse. Go figure, right? That is as stereotypical as you can get for a Filipino family. So, exactly, right? So I was born over there, but I was brought over here when I was really young, when I was just about a year old. So, I always like to joke around and say I'm a 1.5 generation, right? Born over there. I've got, 1 foot over there, 1 foot over here. But when I came over here, I was raised in New Jersey. And so while my father was serving his tours of duty, my mother was raising my sister and I in the Garden State of New Jersey, where we had many other Filipino families, not quite like the West Coast, but still enough to feel that sense of community and what was there. We did grow up in a relatively non-Filipino majority community in the middle of New Jersey, which, in itself is both a blessing as well as a challenge in terms of growing up. So, naturally, when I got to college, that was one of the things that I gravitated to the heaviest, is just searching for who I was as a Filipino American, and what that meant to me, most importantly, because everybody has their own journey. So for me, that just gravitated towards politics. And I was lucky enough to be surrounded by a whole host of community activists and leaders who really took me under their wing, showed me the proper way of being a good, strong leader and an advocate. And that's what I've been trying to do for the last couple of decades here in DC, is just trying to do the same thing by taking newer, younger Filipino Americans and showing them how I was taught, so that, when it's time to finally pass the baton, I can certainly do that.
Love it. Love it. Were there any experiences that happened during that time that pushed you to drive you into that? Because there had to have been something, or like that happened to you. In our last episode, we kind of discussed, I was coming home I was getting ready to go play basketball, and a bunch of like racist guys, yelled profanities at me, and I hurt myself. Did you have anything like that occurred that, really triggered you to move forward with this?
Yeah, there's one singular event I always kind of point to that impacted me significantly, and is a very strong memory in my head. Is it was 1998, and I was in Washington D.C. I was already in grad school at the time, and at that time there was a Filipino collegiate student conference taking place called the Filipino Intercollegiate Networking Dialogue, and it was being hosted at the university I went to, George Washington University. And because one of the singular issues was taking place at that time, which it was the Filipino American World War II veterans issue. And I don't know how familiar you guys are with that issue, or the audience is, but this is a really significant concern and issue for our community, because back during World War II, when the Americans were fighting the Japanese off of the Philippine Islands, the United States government enlisted Filipino soldiers at the time to fight on behalf of the American soldiers side by side with each other to help fight back, the Japanese. And when they did that, they made a promise to these soldiers that for fighting alongside us, we are going to confer to you the same exact rights and benefits that we would any other American soldier. And they did that. Tens of thousands of Filipino soldiers did just that. And because of that, they were able to fight the Japanese off. But what happened at the end of the war? Right? The Rescission Act was passed, and all of those same rights and all of those same benefits were stripped away from these Filipino men. Absolutely stripped away for no reason other than the color of their skin and where they come from. And I don't know how any American nor any Filipino American can hear that story and not want to become involved. And that's exactly what happened to me in 1998. I was educated about the issue, how it came about, and there was an opportunity for us at the time to demonstrate to the United States government that that issue still mattered, even though it was another 40 to 50 years later after World War II. And so what they did was they enlisted that student organizing conference, right? And they said, let's take these passionate college students and let's make them a part of this movement to ask for equity for these Filipino veterans. And that's exactly what we did. So you ask about what that singular event was. This is it, is that during that protest, we were all marching in front of the White House. And this was back in 1998 when you could still march in front of the White House, right? It's not gated off like it currently is right now. So, you can get up really right up against the gate. And what happened is we had dozens of those same veterans dressed in full uniform, right? And they were marching for their rights alongside the next generation of Filipino American leaders. And that was not even the most powerful image in my head. The most powerful image in my head that day was when the Filipino veterans themselves chained themselves, took handcuffs and chained themselves to the White House gates, knowing full well that they were going to be arrested on sight as soon as they clicked on those handcuffs. And that's exactly what they did. They didn't care about what the consequences were. And all I could say to myself was when I saw that, I was like, if these 70-year-olds and 80-year-olds don't care about what the consequences are because they feel so passionately about fighting for their rights, for what they were promised over 40, 50 years ago, then what am I doing as a college student? I need to do my part to be a part of that. And, you ask me if there's a singular incident or a singular, moment in my life that really made it very obvious and crystallized that issue for me. It was that moment, man. It was that moment. And ever since then, every opportunity I get to tell Filipino Americans or even non-Filipino Americans about that plight of the Filipino World War II veterans, I'm happy to do so. I'm happy to report, decades later that, just 3 years ago, we were able to fight for the Congressional Gold Medal of Honor. So all of these veterans, right, have finally been conferred with what they were looking for in the first place, which is recognition for their battle, recognition for their fight, and there's many, many sacrifices with the Congressional Medal of Honor. So
wow. I love it. Woo! Like I said, real heroes. I've covered a lot of protests in the DC area, and just people like you that make it your life's work to speak out and speak for us all are just very commendable. You guys are heroes. Thank you for that. So many questions like I want to get into. So now this year we're living in 2020. We've can't leave our homes due to COVID, and we have one of the most important elections I personally feel ever. I'll already be upfront, and people that follow the Nerds of Color knows we're a very liberal group. I'm very Democrat, and I dislike the guy we have in office right now, and for many reasons. Can you speak on why it's so important? And we're timing this episode to help drive the vote. Why we need to get people out there right now.
Yeah, we're lucky, or at least I'm lucky. I live in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we've been able to vote in person now for several weeks. I've already done so about a week and a half ago because, quite frankly, I wanted to make sure that I saw that ballot go through that machine with my own two eyes. Because I didn't want any shenanigans, as they say, going on with the mail-ins or anything like that. But plus, I also wanted to kind of see what the energy was with the folks who are also standing in line. And I'm happy to report that, everybody was really energized. And the really cool image that I have in my head also is that as I was walking out of the polling booth, there was a mother and a daughter that were taking a selfie outside of the voting booth. They both are African American, and they just had a huge smile on their face. Like that was like such a momentous occasion for them to mark that they had to take a selfie, right? They were like, listen, I need to mark that I participated in this election, and more importantly, I need to encourage others to do so. So, the timing of this episode, the timing of this conversation that the four of us are having today is so timely for this most obvious reason that in 8 days, by next week, or by the time that this airs, who knows what will be happening, nationwide, right? There could be even more excitement about an election that we don't know the results. We might not know the results for at least a couple of days until
Yeah.
after November 3rd,
Oh,
right? And that's the scariest part. And so I guess that's the message that I would deliver to anybody watching the show tonight. It's just that, make sure that if you haven't already done so, that on November 3rd, even if you need to stand in line for the entire day, just to make sure that you cast your vote, it's the most important thing that you can do this entire year, and send a message. That truly is the message that I would say to your audience.
Love it. Another conversation that we had. I have a very conservative father, and Tina was saying earlier that she was raised in a very conservative family. How do you have those discussions with people you care about within your own family? And I know that it's been going a lot throughout this year, and I know other people that have had them, and kind of talking this out, and uh, just the difficulty and the barriers that happen, and sometimes people just stop talking and they don't want to listen. Do you have any suggestions and that you would recommend on how to have those kind of hard conversations?
Yeah, that's hmm. That is tough for sure. And I can only imagine that the only thing I would, I guess, offer is that you have to go on a deeply heart to heart level, I guess, especially if it's a Lolo or a Lola, somebody that we look up to, somebody that we revere, somebody that we as Filipino Americans are taught to pay deference to, respect to, give mano to, whatever it may be. So, right. Like, so, what I would say is that you have an honest heart to heart conversation where you sit down and you say, you know what, Tito, Tita, Lolo, Lola, like, let me tell you why this is my opinion, and let me share with you my experiences and why those experiences have helped create my personal opinion in this particular election. And then my second part of that suggestion would be for you to do the same and listen to them, which is probably the hardest part, because we want to immediately close up and just say, you're wrong.
Yeah.
That doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. It doesn't work like that anymore, Lolo. Like generations have changed, times are different, and it's easy to just throw up walls, right? But I think if you can hopefully create that two-way street of communication, I think that's really the best approach to make that conversation happen. Otherwise, there might as well not be a conversation taking place if you're just going to throw up walls. It's not going to work. It's not going to work at all.
Do you think that there's more difficulty with, I guess, the politics of Christian colonized areas where they've kind of used it as a way of indoctrinating a particular set of behaviors to kind of make this, I guess, easier to line up with more modern human rights issues?
Yeah, we'd be lying to ourselves, right, if we said as Filipino Americans that our faith, our religion, and our spirituality doesn't play a role in our culture and in our values, right? That would just be wrong to say that. However, I do believe that, as we open ourselves up to those conversations and look at it from and are willing to look at it from a different seat and a different angle, I can only hope that, it works both ways, that it's not just us as young people, because we have to pay that deference. We're the ones who have to acquiesce to Lola just because, she's older, and we dismiss her, her thoughts. That wouldn't be the right approach. At the same time, I don't think we're going to change her mind necessarily, right? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
We're probably not going to change her habits. If she wants to go to church every day and she wants to do that, there's no way we're going to change her mind. And all we can do is support that and be understanding and be there for each other. Because at the end of the day, that is the most important part, is that we're family. We're there for each other. We're supposed to be there. So.
I saw on the news the other day, though, that the Pope has been making So I was raised very conservative Catholic Filipino. But I saw in the news recently that the Pope was, sorry, I had to look it up, like sending messages of hope and inclusion as he's appointing, African American cardinals and celebrating same-sex marriage and things like that. And it's that like blows my mind, like growing up kind of with those Catholic values and then kind of seeing this change in things. I think that that's just what's on the horizon.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, the African American cardinal you're referring to is the one here in DC. And so, that's why I think that this Pope in particular is that beacon of light that should really show us that as generations go by, that there is hope for a slow evolution of these beliefs and of these, thoughts that we have.
All right, Rodney, again, thank you for coming on. I have one last question for you. For young Filipinos, young Asian Americans, or just young people in general that see the issues that are going on in the world, and they want to do some of the very same things that you are doing to help speak to the people, advocate for the people. What are some suggestions, and where would you point them to get moving on that path to help making a difference?
Absolutely. First and foremost, spend some time in Washington, D.C. I truly mean that, not just because I live here, but also because there's so much to take in. And what I mean by that is if you can spend a summer doing an internship on Capitol Hill or at the White House or at one of the many federal government agencies, that's one way to get involved and immerse yourself in the opportunity. If you're a high school student, do what I did, get involved in organizations like Junior State of America, any other speech and debate, any other kinds of organizations that are all about civic engagement and understanding how government works. And then lastly, if you can search out and seek out exceptional mentors. And they don't all have to be here in Washington, D.C., because remember, there are levels of government and there's political activism all over the United States. And so you need to search out key leaders within the community that are willing and open-minded enough to take young people under their wing, so that way they can teach them what they've learned over the years, over the decades, so that they can avoid the mistakes that they made previously and that they can take the best advantage of all of these resources. I will say that that's exactly what happened to me during college, is that many of the community elders really took the opportunity to bring me into community meetings, into conversations, to invite me to special events where other key, movers and shakers were going to be. And that's how I networked. That's how I got my name out there. And that is also how I got tapped time and time again. Hey, Rodney, can you be in charge of this? Hey, can you work the registration desk at this conference? Can you, stuff, binders over there, to get everything organized and together? And all of those little things, those tiny things that seem like they're nothing, they matter, because we need all of that activity and all of those commitments and the committed people behind it to make all of the big picture stuff work. So, if you are one of those folks who are looking to lead a life in public service and dedicated to making sure that, our community is treated fairly, that we have the same opportunities as every other community, not more, okay, the same opportunities that everybody else has, then yeah, that's what I would suggest, that you come on over to Washington, D.C. We'd be more than happy to show you around and teach you the ropes.
I love it. I love it. And I just want to tell you, Rodney, I served for 4 years in the U.S. military, and I served my country. Thank you. And we get, we're called heroes, and I appreciate that. I don't feel I deserve it. But for me, from somebody that they call a hero, I find people like you that make it your life's work and do what you do for the community, and you speak out and you encourage people to make a difference. I think you guys are heroes. And if you don't hear that, I want to tell you, and if they call me a hero, from hero to a hero, you are a hero. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's get the vote out. Please, everyone, get the vote out. And thank you so much for your time, Rodney. We'd love to have you on the show again, to just, spread that knowledge and tell more of your stories. Again, you're making a difference. And thank you again so much for joining us on the show.
So excited. Thank you. Thank you very much.